All right, welcome to another edition of 10 Minutes with. Kate decided to skip the show today to go drinking wine with her mom. I guess it's like 3:30 in Chicago right now as we're recording this. So I don't know when she started drinking, but she could be doing some morning drinking. Wouldn't be unlike her. She's not here, so I'm trashing her all I want. Since this episode's going to air next week, just a flashback, our previous guest, the Never Heard of Them podcast, we were on their last Thursday episode, and we did a pretty good job trashing each other. So
Very nice.
Please check that out. So as you can see, I'm with a guest here today. Today our guest comes to us out of the Oklahoma City area. Please welcome to the show the host of the Air Raid Attack podcast, Mike McClintock. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, DJ, for having me. Glad to be a part of not just stadium scene, but glad to be a part of your day and part of your show.
Yeah. So we've been trying to get this booked here for a few weeks now. So just unfortunately, life has happened, good and bad. So hopefully everything's going well in your life now, or as well as it can be considering the circumstances.
Yeah, things are kind of quieting down. Of course, a few weeks ago, I believe the first part of July, I was diagnosed with or had COVID-19 symptoms. And then my youngest son, Blake, he had, I think, the worst part of it. So, but all is well since, and we're just trying to stay healthy as much as possible.
Good to hear. I mean, I know you're running into some tough times there with the illnesses in the family. So good that's finally getting under control. So, let's go to a bit of a higher note. Let's talk about your show today. So, let's go right into it. Why did you start a podcast?
You know, DJ, the reason why I started a podcast is growing up, I actually had a speech impediment. And so pretty much from elementary to my freshman year of high school, I was a quiet kid. Everybody knew me. I had my friends, but I wasn't the one that's going to be the first one to speak. I want to read a book or raise your hand to say whatever. So grew up, watched all kinds of sports, grew up practically a sports fanatic. And so my passion's in sports. I figured, well, why not share your passion with a lot of people talking sports? And so that's really one of many reasons why I started a podcast. And secondly, just to have fun. Share your passion, share what you love to do, and talk about it and make some friends.
So I'm going to deviate here. We're going over our 10 minutes. I guarantee it. But you talked about growing up, you had a speech impediment. I've noticed there's actually a lot of people who, in their youth have a speech impediment actually go on into broadcasting. And it seems like that's kind of been a way to help. I don't know if treat's the right word. I mean, is that like, can you kind of outline the process of how you address that from yourself and from your, personal standpoint?
Absolutely. To me personally, I think it's more of a overcoming story. I grew up and not many people, my dad, and, he can probably tell you that, hey, he was just a quiet one. At home, I just, not so much stayed quiet at home. It's just because of self-confidence. There we go. That's the word I'm thinking, because you're afraid of making a mistake every single second of the day because you mispronounced the R word. My biggest one's R word. So if I can say Gretzky, I can sit there, and if I say it too fast, I may say Gretzky or whatever. So something just random off the top of my head. So I think with that, building into broadcasting, podcasts, so on and so forth, I think that's a self-confidence thing because you gain more and more self-confidence knowing, hey, this is who I am. It's not going to get away. It's just – so I think that's what kind of led into podcasting and even broadcasting down the road.
It's awesome. It's a really cool story.
Yes, sir.
So, moving on to the show, let's just let's go down the road. What should a listener expect to hear from your show? What talk about the format?
The podcast, the Air Raid Attack podcast, and a lot of people asked. I think the biggest question I had was, how in the world did you come up with Air Raid Attack? First of all, and so being a Big 12 country, we see the ball get gunslinged more than we see probably defenses trying to tackle. Here in Big 12 country. We just gunsling it. So you got the air raid, of course. Hal Mom is a big time air raid personnel that came up with it. But I live, just so people know, I'm close to the Air Force Base. And if you're familiar with Oklahoma, it's kind of obvious. It's a few Air Force bases. So military, my grandpa's back is a Air Force person, so air raid, kind of come up with it. So what people can expect at the show is, one, I kind of say it as I see it. If OU or any other team may struggle, that's fine. I mean, they're going to struggle. I'm going to kind of give them my 2 cents, but at the same time expect expect to hear people coming from coaches, players, even front office personnel come on, really get more of the in-depth of the sports instead of just, man, the New Jersey Devils really sucked that night. Corey Snyder gave up 7 goals, and the team gave up one, scored 1, and so on, whatever the case may be. Or the Denver Broncos have no quarterback, or whatever the case may be. It's more of you'll still get the game analysis, but at the same time, you'll get guests coming on and really more to hear more of the in-depth behind the scenes than you do what you would usually hear.
See, and you made an interesting point, being in Big 12 country, and it's all out offense. There's no defense in there. I grew up in Big 10 country. I went to a Big 10 school, and it's basically defense and quarterbacks. And it's the, and until, I went to Purdue and until Joe Tiller came around and kind of changed things up a little bit in the conference. I mean, it was just, it's linebackers here. It was,
yes.
And then, you look through the quarterbacks that have come out of the Big Ten, and some not as well known, Tom Brady, not as well known in college as he is today.
Right.
And there's even, if you look back, Michigan fans wanted him benched while he was there. Little did they know what he was going to turn out to be after he left out of the school. But I mean, it's just a kind of amazing, and that culture is kind of held on. That you always see Texas Tech. They're always airing it out. They'll score 50, 60 points a game, but they'll also give up 50, 60 points a game. But it's amazing that you go across these conferences, and it's just the culture hasn't changed. It's amazing. Like, it's just, that's what it is. That's how it always has been. And then you get somebody who comes in periodically and disrupts it and has a little bit of success until the conference adapts. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And I think that's really what makes college football so great.
Absolutely. And, I think college football, I think I mentioned this maybe on the previous show, maybe on Monday's show. Anybody watching it, definitely check it out. I think I mentioned this is I believe eventually, I know the NFL is a big time league. I still think college football eventually is going to get to that level if it hasn't already. No, it's not going to be the most premier whatever, so on and so forth. But it's getting to the point that it's starting to be that big time sport to where everybody really grasps the college football game. I remember growing up, it wasn't as big as it is now. I mean, now you got, teams that you never heard of that they're legit consistently, year in and year out competing for the national championship. Back in the early 2000s, I think it was Oklahoma, Texas, Florida State, maybe at times Miami. And that's really in Ohio State. That's really who you had. Now you got Alabama, LSU. OU's good till they get to the playoffs. You got, Michigan if they can ever beat Ohio State. Purdue had a wonderful year that one year. So I mean, it's just every year it's unpredictable.
Even if looking at the smaller schools too. I mean, you look at like Boise State, for example. Yep. I mean, that was until the late 90s, nobody had really ever heard of Boise State, at least from a football standpoint. Now everybody knows who Boise State is. Yep. Appalachian State walked in almost 15 years ago now and upset Michigan, and now they're a Division I school, and they've been they've come into the top 25. I mean, this is Appalachian State. I mean, this isn't a big school by any means in a large urban area. I mean, it's really amazing just how these programs have risen over the last several years.
Oh, absolutely. And Appalachian State, I think I mentioned in one of my shows, is now with the way that college football is built, at least for this year. I mean, I'm not going to speak for one and moving forward, but for 2020, I mean, this team could easily be, we might sneak into this New Year's Six Bowl. I don't know how all that's going to work out. We'll get there if it ever happens. But, I mean, we're talking teams, Boise State beat Oklahoma about 12 years ago roughly now in the Fiesta Bowl with the Statue of Liberty play. You got teams TCU. I remember them in the Rose Bowl beating Wisconsin, So it's just unpredictable. You got teams, like you said, it's just never were a power. Now they're competing for championships and conferences and trying to be that in that 16th seed area.
And the thing is, I love that, when Boise State came onto the scene and just kind of, they came in and just started punching the big guys in the mouth. And after that game, I ended up going and actually buying a Boise State jersey. It was Ian Johnson who had the winning touchdown there. I have his jersey. It's hanging in my closet. And I just love their blue field. I mean, I had to travel to Boise for work about 10 years ago. First thing I did after I got off the plane, I got in my rental car. I drove up to campus. I wanted to see the blue field for myself. That's the first thing. And then I went and ate Jack in the Box and got really nasty food poisoning. And now I have a really sour memory from going to Boise. It's been over a decade now, but I still am kind of like, ugh. I mean, now that I live out in Arizona, I see Jack in the Box everywhere, and I still drive by and just kind of like, oh no.
We have a few here in Oklahoma City, but I'm not a huge fan of them.
Well, they won't be sponsoring this show. Oops.
Sorry, Jack in the Box. Well,
you can cross them off your sponsorship list, so we'll have to find another fast food place. So, since you've started podcasting, share a piece of advice that you've learned coming along the way.
Honestly, a lot. Even when I went to school, American Broadcasting here in Oklahoma, and right down the street from me in Del City, and even through there, and then meeting a lot of on-air personalities and podcasters and so on. The piece of the puzzle that really is the biggest advice that continues to be what I go through on a daily basis and even into shows is just be yourself. Just be yourself. You're going to have technical difficulties. You're going to have, things come up that where maybe it just wasn't the greatest of show, so on and so forth. You maybe stumbled, you had all your notes, but then somehow the cat drops the water or runs across your desk, water falls on it, whatever the case may be. It's just be yourself. That's really the biggest advice, I think.
Second show in a row, we've had a story about a cat interrupting a broadcast.
And what's funny is on Thursday's episode, and I kid you not, it's just I must have had butterfingers. It's just, and it goes back to just be yourself and just roll with the motions. I was trying to scoot the mouse across the desk. Well, somehow when I went to the right, it just flew across the room. I'm here. It's actually during the show, so I really can't just stop and edit. I'm like, I got a lot of momentum going. I realized I looked over, then my keypad, our mouse pads on the laptops, it doesn't want to work. I'm literally just talking at this point, rambling. And then I think towards the 24th or 25th minute, I was like, we're going to take a quick break. A lot of technical difficulties will be bad.
Pause and refresh. Let's start fresh.
We're done.
I hear that. I actually, in our episode from last week, the way I have my chair positioned on purpose for everybody is that there's a door behind me.
Right.
My children, I have twin daughters who are 2.5, and this is strategically blocking the door because periodically last week during the show, the door kept opening. And I wasn't going to look back because I didn't want to distract everybody. And my children, actually, my kids, they were getting ready for bath time and ripped all their clothes off, running around.
Oh my God.
So my wife is like, I hope she's sending me texts, and I'm seeing them pop up on my screen right here.
Right.
Popping up. I hope your chair is blocking the door. I'm like, yes, it's blocking the door. but yes, you're gonna have technical difficulties. You're gonna have distractions, and you gotta roll with it. I mean, that's well said.
It's gonna happen. I mean, and I got people that was listening that text and message me on Twitter and all that good stuff. Great show, and I was like, thanks. And here I am thinking this show sucked because my mouse flew across the room. I can't work my mouse on the thing. You guys are just at this point. I don't know what at this. I think we're talking about the Appalachian State, and here I am, just like 20th minute. I'm like, well, my mouse ain't working. My mouse over here is way over here. The battery's out. Now I gotta go fetch it. And so it's just one of those days that, like I said, word of advice: be yourself. Things gonna happen. Just you gotta take the punches, roll with them. and move on.
And I mean, on top of that too, like if you look back at like these TV shows that go over history, like TV best moments, like live TV moments, 9 out of 10 of those things are because something went wrong, and
Yep.
it was hilarious and very entertaining, and it's just, yeah, you got to roll with it. I mean, it's you might be embarrassed yourself, but chances are the audience is gonna love it.
Well, I still got one person from the Tulsa area, and I won't say her name for security purposes, but she'll still message, hey, I'm still thinking about that mouse tossing across the room. I was like, I didn't toss it. It slipped out of my it slipped out. But hey, it's what a lot of it why I love what I do, podcasting and getting finishing up school and to get my broadcast and running with it. It's fun. I enjoy it, and you got to roll with the good and bad times.
Good message. So where can we find your show, and where can we find you on social media?
Boy, that's a good one. First off, Twitter is a big time. I'm more active. I think Donald Trump beats me out on that one, but no.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly, for real. But no, all jokes aside, not to bring politics into it. No, all jokes aside, definitely on Twitter at @airraid_podcast is where you can find the show. My personal one, On Air with Mike, facebook.com/air podcast. Not as active on there just yet. There's some kinks and things I want to kind of do with the page, and then eventually Instagram, and then Periscope, Mike_Air Attack, I think is what it is. And then Sportscaster, but that's a new up-and-coming one. So mainly Twitter, to answer your question, at @airraid_podcast is where you can social media outlet, be a part of the show. I'm going to have all kinds of things here in the upcoming month. September's going to be loaded, all kinds of things. So it's going to be a good month and a lot of fan interaction. So that's the best way to find us on there and follow the show.
Great. And in my case, I'm from Big Ten country. I live in Pac-12 country. I'm just going to be kicking my feet up and taking the year off.
What was your reaction to that canceling? Were you kind of surprised?
No, I'm really not. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if one of the other conferences that are still planning on going will end up canceling, whether it's either right before it starts or just after it starts. But who knows? I mean, it seems like people who are behaving themselves in these bubble concepts seem to be working quite well. It's in the case of like Major League Baseball, for example, the problems we've been having are you had the Marlins sneak out and allegedly go to a casino or a bar. You have the St. Louis Cardinals allegedly sneak out and go to a casino, and that's when you have the problem. So it's like if people can behave themselves, we may have a season. Or if not, sucks. That's all you can say.
Exactly, and I'm with you on that. I still think, as much as I love my Sooners, and I'm still waiting for that first playoff win, I still think
I would just love to get to a New Year's Day. It's been a while since I think the last time Purdue was in a New Year's Day bowl was when I was still a student there, going back 15 years.
Were you there when Drew Brees was there?
No, I got there just after. I was there for the Kyle Orton era.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Kyle Orton and Curtis Painter era.
Wow, I forgot about them.
Yeah, they both spent some time in the NFL, a little bit.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, Orton was a decent quarterback. He had a reputation on campus of being kind of a drunk.
Well, sadly, I can see that, but just by his facial expressions, I can see him being kind of that name.
There's an infamous photo that I'm sure you can still find somewhere of Kyle Orton. And like his senior year, he had that really good start to the season, then he got hurt and fell off. And I mean, for the first half of the season, I mean, he was in the shortlist for a Heisman finalist, and then he got hurt, and it just, things fell off from there. But they had like a PR person in there working with allegedly to try to we got to clean up your reputation a little bit. Like there's a photo from his junior year where he's in a bar, standing on campus, standing on the bar with a bottle of whiskey in his hand, yeah! It's just I never met him personally, but I know a lot of people who have, and seems like he's a great guy. He just likes to have fun.
Nothing wrong with that. Just be responsible and
exactly.
and take care of yourself and all that. But
he made some money. He played in the pros. He was on a Super Bowl
yeah,
participants roster with the Bears back
yep,
in '07. So,
correct.
hey, you know,
Yeah, when they lost the Colts.
yep. Which, being from Indiana, that was also a good day for me.
That was a good, yes, indeed. No, it was. I'm with you. I think probably once we get closer, I know for sure the Big 12 starts the 12th of September. I know OU does. I still think probably around Labor Day, that Wednesday, I still expect a week prior. I think one of these conferences are still going to fold, or maybe give it a week and see what happens. I don't expect, as much as I love college football, I just don't. I just have an eerie feeling that we're gonna probably be canceled, I think, completely throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, we shall see.
Hope not. Give us cross fingers.
All right. So, Mike, thanks again for being on the show. The show is the Air Raid Attack podcast. Download it wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And the rest of you, check us out at stadiumscene.tv. Join the network and give us a follow at Stadium Scene on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, and Stadium_Scene on Instagram. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Daisy, for having me. You guys take care. Have a wonderful weekend.
All right, you too. Take care.
Will do.